Greetings, Sun Devil Nation, and welcome to this week's installment of Sun Devil Extra. This is the Mountain America Credit Union Sun Devil Radio Network's weekly show that shines a spotlight on the teams, athletes, coaches, and stories making news in Arizona State University's Sun Devil athletics. Hi, everybody. I'm Tim Healey, the radio play-by-play voice of Sun Devil football, men's basketball, and baseball. It's my honor and pleasure to serve as your host each and every week. This week, we're going to shine our spotlight onto Arizona State's 9th-ranked women's water polo team, which has a huge home match coming up this weekend against number 2 ranked California. The match to take place this Saturday at 12 noon at the Mona Plummer Aquatic Center on the ASU campus. Joining us a bit later on to talk about their 2024 Sun Devil team and this week's matchup with Cal will be third-year ASU head coach Petra Pardee and one of Petra's top players and one of the all-time great players in Sun Devil history as the school's most prolific goal scorer ever, senior attacker Lutza Patovari will join us a little bit later on. But for now, time to welcome in our guest host this week, and this time I know it's a very highly coveted position for all of our friends in Sun Devil Athletics Administration, but the award this week goes for the second time this school year to our dear friend, Sun Devil Senior Associate Athletic Director and Senior Women's Athletics Administrator at Arizona State, Christina Wombacher, rejoins us on the show. How are you, my dear?
I'm good. How are you?
It's good to see you.
Thanks for having me.
Boy, this is an exciting time, isn't it, in Sun Devil Athletics, with the Arizona State wrestling team having posted a 6th place national finish at last week's NCAA championships in Kansas City, with sophomore Richard Figueroa winning the national championship in the 125-pound weight class to make him ASU's first national individual champion in wrestling since Zahid Valencia back in 2019. He is the 10th Sun Devil wrestler all time to win a national title. What a run Zeke Jones and his program have had, huh, Christina?
Very exciting to watch. Lots of coverage and social media was really fun. 4 All-Americans. Very exciting for Zeke and the team.
And that's publicity and exposure for an athletic department you really can't buy or you can't put a price tag on, can you?
Absolutely. Nope, it's great. All publicity, and it's good news out there for us, so good storyline.
It's good stuff. And meanwhile, Bob Bowman's number 1 ranked Sun Devil men's swimming team has a chance to do even better this week as they take part in the NCAA Men's Swimming and Diving Championships in Indianapolis, Indiana. 18 Sun Devil swimmers will be in the pool this weekend in Indy competing to help elevate Arizona State to its first ever team national championship in men's swimming. And with superstar Leon Marchand leading that group, you really have to like Bob's team's chances, don't you?
Really good chances. Yeah, it's exciting. Everybody wants to go and be there to cheer them on and jump in the pool afterwards like they did at the Pac-12.
Yeah, I guess that's the swimming version of the dog pile that we used to see in Omaha at the College World Series. Meanwhile, a couple of women's sports programs are on springtime rolls. Women's golf set several Arizona State program records this past weekend in winning the Dr. Donis Thompson Invitational in Hawaii on the island of Kauai. ASU's 3-round total of, get this, 42 under par, the best 54-hole score versus par in Sun Devil women's golf history, the 8th best in NCAA history. Furthermore, the Sun Devils' 2nd round team score in that tournament, 22 under par, was the lowest 18-hole score versus par in ASU history. And to top all that off, ASU senior Ashley Mene won the individual title. Her 3-round total, 14 under par. That's the best individual 54-hole score against par in Sun Devil women's golf history. What a week in Kauai for Missy's program.
So proud of them, and just coming off the week before at Darius Rucker, so back-to-back wins for them, first place. And I thought it was a typo. I kept refreshing my golf stat, and I was like 22 under, 42 under. It's craziness.
When you're setting records that you think are typos, that's when you know you've gotten into the stratosphere in terms of sports accomplishments.
And this weekend, they host a tournament, the Ping Invitational at Papago. So come on out on Saturday for that.
Absolutely, and come check out Missy's team. Meanwhile, the 11th-ranked Sun Devil beach volleyball team improved to 14-4 on the season by winning 3 out of its 4 matches at a tournament in Fort Worth, Texas. this past weekend. And by the way, the Sun Devils' #2 duo, both from the state of Texas, sophomore Arden Bessiker and freshman Ava Williamson, went undefeated over the weekend. They've now won 9 matches in a row, and that ties a Sun Devil program record.
They are doing awesome, huge strides this year. Coach Rohr, in her first year at ASU, is doing amazing things. The team is really excited, and we're hosting the Pac-12 championship in April. So come on out to Tempe in April and see the team.
Speaking of hosting events, there's a minor event taking place next week in Glendale, Arizona. The NCAA men's basketball Final Four coming to State Farm Stadium in Glendale for the second time in the last 7 years. And Arizona State University, one of the hosts of that big event, the biggest event of all in college basketball. Some would argue it's the greatest sports event in America every year. And we'll find out this coming weekend which 4 teams will be headed to Glendale to compete in the Final Four. Of course, back in 2017, North Carolina won a national title, defeating Gonzaga in the championship game in a Final Four group that also included Oregon and South Carolina. And it's time to welcome 4 more teams to Glendale next week, Christina, and I'm sure that the Arizona State team is ready. This has been years in the making, the planning for this, right?
March Madness for sure, and I feel like we just hosted. It was just 2017, so our team is well equipped to host. We're host all the time, and we're looking forward to it. From Doug Tamaro to Kurt Klingerman, JD, Chiz, it takes a full army to put that on. So thanks to the Phoenix Local Organizing Committee and everyone that's put in all of the time to make it possible.
And the Arizona State folks roll out the red carpet at events like this as well as anybody in all of intercollegiate athletics. 2 very significant events in ASU athletics this past week. One of them occurred Monday night, which as we tape our show was last night. But this past Monday night, the annual Wings of Gold banquet, which honors the best of the best student athletes and coaches among Arizona State's 14 women's varsity sports. What a great event that's become.
Oh my gosh, we are outgrowing venues every single year. We had it at the Omni last night, and it was spectacular. Over 400 people were there honoring the student athletes and the coaches that mentored them. We had J.J. Van Neal was Coach of the Year, and Ashley Menny was the Heather Farr Award recipient. It was very special. We heard from different student athletes and coaches throughout the whole evening.
It's a great event. And last week at ASU was Back Your Devils Week, highlighted by a Monday evening reception at Mountain America Stadium as Arizona State continues to make strides in beefing up Arizona State's NIL initiatives. Head football coach Kenny Dillingham and head women's basketball coach Natasha Adair each made really, I thought, compelling remarks to the fans, donors, and boosters in attendance. And how did the week unfold in terms of what your expectations were?
It went really well. I mean, small donations, large donations, lots of participation and competition amongst the teams for those dollars, and the community responded. We're super grateful.
And again, that was last week, Back Your Devils Week at Arizona State. In your role as senior women's administrator at ASU, Christina, you oversee the day-to-day operations of 2 sports here, women's basketball and volleyball. Mm-hmm. And I was going to get your reflections on each, starting with what has to rank as one of the greatest seasons. It was year 50 for volleyball, women's volleyball at Arizona State, yeah, and certainly one of the best seasons in the history of the program, to say the least, as J.J. Van Neal's Sun Devil team finished 28-7, went to the NCAA Sweet 16, and Sun Devil women's basketball is Christina's other sport, and basketball continues its rebuild under second-year head coach Natasha Adair. Share with us some reflections on each team's seasons, yeah, as they went.
Super proud of both of them, as you said. J.J. Van Neal, first-time head coach and Pac-12 Coach of the Year this year, started with culture in his team and the buy-in, and he's super proud of his team and just getting to know them better as people first, mm-hmm, and then student athletes, and they just worked really hard. He is very intense. He is analytical. He was just putting all the pieces together with these student athletes, so did an outstanding job.
And Natasha, obviously, it's always challenging in a rebuild. It's even more challenging in year 2 when your leading scorer, Ty Skinner, goes down with a knee injury before you even play a game. Her team continued to compete through the challenges. What were your takeaways from the women's basketball season?
Yeah, that was a bummer with Ty and her injury, and we've overcome a lot of injuries over the past couple of years, but next woman up, and they stepped up, and there was so much resilience and perseverance throughout the year. I could hear coach in the locker room telling them the game plan, and they would execute it to the best of their ability, and they just worked so hard this year. So building the roster, building the community support, and that's the next step.
And as a former outstanding basketball player yourself up at Yavapai College, that has to mean a lot to you watching these kids play.
It does. It's super important to see the growth and the talent that we have, and we're just going to build on that each year.
Last but certainly not least, this is a big week for Arizona State sports as Kenny Dillingham's ASU football team hitting the practice field once again. Spring practice begins at Arizona State this week. 3 practices a week, culminating with the spring football game in late April, which I believe will be a night game at Mountain America Stadium. Internally within the athletic department, Christina, what's the vibe as spring football unfolds? And certainly I think Kenny and his staff have done a wonderful job of overhauling the roster, hit so hard in so many positions, particularly the offensive line, by injuries a year ago. What's the vibe as football practice, spring practice starts?
It's positive. When Kenny talks about activate the Valley, the department's activated, the team's activated, everybody's excited about the momentum of the program, the student athletes, the staff, going into the Big 12, just a lot of excitement. I can see out my window, they're putting the lines on the field, and the team's out there excited about the spring game, like you said, on the 26th, that there's going to be something there for everybody, younger, season ticket holder, one-time ticket holder, families, everyone.
I believe that's a Friday night, isn't it? April 26th.
The 26th.
At Mountain America Stadium, 6 p.m., the annual ASU spring football game. Spring practices underway at ASU. Christina, always great to catch up with you. Thanks for joining us this week.
Thank you. Anytime. Thanks for having me.
That's Sun Devil Senior Associate Athletic Director and Senior Women's Athletics Administrator Christina Wombacher, our guest host on this week's edition of Sun Devil Extra. Up next, we will take a deep dive into the pool and check out the Sun Devil Women's Water Polo program as the 9th-ranked Sun Devils get set to host number 2 California this week at the Mona Plummer Aquatic Center. Up next, we will visit with ASU's third-year head coach as former Sun Devil All-American Petra Party will join us. But first, these messages. This is Sun Devil Extra from the Mountain America Credit Union Sun Devil Radio Network.